Speaker Mike Johnson and John Thune are trying to go into recess, and Trump is saying, you get to work. You don't take August off. Welcome to Doug In Exile. This is where the happy patriots are. There's so many ins and outs and rules on this complicated Senate argument of what's happening where that I went and did research to make it make sense to me, and now I'm going to make it make sense for you. Okay. This is about as simple as I can do to make these rules work. You know, the rules in the Senate, this is insane how that place operates, but it is very important with Trump's agenda and with where America is going. I believe, you know, all of MAGA, a lot of it hinges on what the Senate can do. So there's Trump, he's the superstar. Senate is where all the complicated rules go, what stays and what doesn't. Let me just dive in and explain. Hope you guys subscribe if you like this kind of content. We're going to have some fun together and learn. It'll all make sense, I promise. This shouldn't be like homework. This should be a lot of fun. So this is Donald Trump's post. He says, the Senate, Mike Johnson, must stay in session. This might divide MAGA, so I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. What do you think? I mean, I'm siding with Trump squarely on this one. The Senate must stay in session, taking no recess until the entire executive calendar is clear. That's Trump's calendar is clear. Now, I saw videos of Thune saying that they want to take a recess, and Mike Johnson saying he's going to take some time off and he's going to be traveling around the world, meeting with all these world leaders and doing all this political stuff. Big mistake from both Thune and Mike Johnson, okay? Big mistake. Trump continues, we have to save our country from the lunatic left. And that is the bottom line of everything. Absolutely true. Republicans, for the health and safety of the United States, do your job, all caps, and confirm all nominees. They should not be forced to wait. Thank you for your attention on this matter. Now, that is a pretty straightforward command to Trump. I guarantee you he is on the phone with Thune and Mike Johnson, but that's who he's fighting, okay? They're going, look, we've worked hard. We need our time off. I'm like, bro, America is about to die. It is going to die. You have about 1 year before the 2026 midterms, and both of your majorities could get sopped up and lost, and Trump will get impeached, you morons. Now, you guys all know I'm a huge fan of Mike Johnson. Ain't no bigger fan of Mike Johnson and defender of him than me. But it doesn't mean I just support everything he does. If he does a screw up like this, I'll call him out and go, Mike Johnson, you are being a complete wussy, ineffective screw up. If you take this recess, it's like we have them on their back heels. You do not take the boot off the neck of the Democrats until that whole concept, until that whole movement is just done in the poo-poo, rotting in the tar pits, unable to escape forever. Your job is not done. You're not going to Disneyland. I know that you guys are sacrificing time with your family, but the American people have sacrificed far more than you. They nearly destroyed the country. Get to work. This is an emergency. And that's why I'm doing a video on this. Guys, this is going to be great. You're going to learn so much, okay? This is all about that. So that post sent a shockwave out, right? Throughout all of the internet and MAGA. This is Trump using very few words to have giant influence on the Senate. It's a direct call to the Senate Republicans to prioritize confirming this Trump's pending nominees. These are judges. These are every kind of job you can imagine, the VA. And so he wants them okayed during the August break. Now, this is going to trigger a whole lot of rules, okay? In essence, he's pressuring them to clear the, quote, executive calendar, the Senate's list of presidential nominations that include, these are nominations he's done for judges, which we need Republican, conservative, MAGA judges placed, his ambassadors, cabinet officials, so that would be like Jeanine Pirro, and other executive roles before adjourning. This comes amid a backlog of over 100 nominees. Remember, the Democrats are not giving him his nominees. They're flat out saying no, including around 50 federal judges. So all of us who've complained about Judge Boasberg, you know, he's the kind of judge that we need to offset with Trump's appointments. that have been stalled largely by Democrat procedural tactics like holds and slow walking debates. That's like Cory Booker and doing their long debates so they can prevent, they're waiting for this session to go out this month in August. Trump's frustration stems from the Senate's inefficiency under Republican control. That goes to Thune and Mike Johnson, viewing it as a betrayal that hampers his ability to, quote, save our country from the lunatic left, unquote, by fully staffing his administration and loyal appointees, making them permanent. From a pro-Trump's perspective, this is classic swamp behavior. Establishment Republicans like Senate Majority Leader John Thune are putting their vacations ahead of America's needs, allowing Democrats to run out the clock and weaken the Trump agenda. You know what? It's go time for the right. I've worked in video games on 2 games, Earthworm Jim, I created, but we had to work every day on that game. This is back when I was 27 years old. Of course, I'd probably die if I did this now, but we worked 18-hour days, including Saturdays and Sundays. On the Neverhood, which I did through DreamWorks, I was the owner of that company, so I put beds in the lobby so my team could sleep in them. We did 18-hour days, finished a video game in a year that would take any other team 2 years. Why? Because it was go time. Our jobs depended on it. The survival of my company depended on it. We worked on Sundays even, and I hardly ever work on the Sabbath. We had a joke that we got from Jeffrey Katzenberg. If you don't bother coming in on Sunday, don't bother coming in on Monday. Is what we like, implying that you're fired. And that's what Trump is saying. He's going, look, I know you guys have been working hard for a bunch of soft, wussy Republicans, but now you're not taking August off. You know, America, just like my company was at stake, America's at stake. It's time for you guys to buy beds, put them in your office, stay in Washington, do not go home, do not go on vacation. And I'm telling you guys to reach out to Thune and Johnson and start telling them, stay and do your job to save America, okay? The executive calendar backlog isn't just bureaucratic red tape. It's a direct threat to Trump's mission to make America great again. And here's why it matters: the judicial overhaul. Number 1, Trump has nominated conservative judges to counter the activist liberal lunatic judges like Boasberg on the bench. So Obama got his appointments, Biden got his appointments, and Trump has not gotten his appointments to offset them, meaning the will of the American people has not influenced our judges yet the way that the Democrats have. Delays mean more time for leftist rulings on immigration, Second Amendment rights, and election integrity. Clearing these would lock in Trump's legacy on the courts for decades. If you want to know why Sidney Powell put up the Kraken and started questioning elections, and none of the cases were even considered, it's because there weren't enough conservative judges out there to even consider those cases. That's the long-term repercussions on election integrity, gun rights, free speech. This is an emergency. And then unconfirmed nominees include key roles in agencies like the VA, the Justice Department, like a Jack Smith appointment, and foreign posts. Without them, Trump's policies on border security, energy independence, and draining the swamp grind to a halt. Democrats are happy to obstruct, and that's what I will also remind Thune and Johnson of. The Democrats agree with you that there should be a recess, knowing it buys time for their resistance. And then finally, now this is a weird rule. This is the first rule that we have to learn, okay? If the Senate fully recesses for more than 10 days without pro forma sessions, I'll tell you what a pro forma session is in a minute, but if the Senate fully recesses, then it triggers Trump's ability to appoint nominees temporarily without confirmation, bypassing delays. These appointments, called recess appointments, serve until the end of the next Senate session, which if the Senate doesn't go back into session, it could get all the way through 2026. Well into next year. But if Thune opts out for pro forma sessions, what's that? That's a way for Thune to keep control away from President Trump making recess appointments by he gavels every few days. He goes in and just hits the gavel and goes, we're in session. And it's a technicality, right? So that 10-day trigger doesn't happen that allows Trump to make his recess appointments. So Trump loses his tool, and MAGA, we're seeing this as a deliberate sabotage by John Thune. Okay, I don't throw that accusation around lightly. I love, in general, the work that Thune does, but dude, you got to give up that gavel, go into a full recess for 10 days and let Trump make his recess appointments. All of these things can just be greenlit overnight. And so Thune is saying, no, we want to keep our authority of advise and consent. That's okay. Separation of powers. Senate wants to keep that. House wants to keep that. Then don't just go in and run your gavel every 3 days. Get to work. So Thune has agreed to leave the session open a few days more before they take a recess, and they might continue to extend it longer and longer. Okay. The broader agenda, the Senate's pushing Trump's big, beautiful bill on taxes, spending cuts, and immigration, but nominees are part of that package. Remember, he called some out in the big, beautiful bill package. A prolonged fight could spill into fall funding. That is, the funding of the big, beautiful bill may not be complete by fall. If they take this time off in August, big mistake. You guys cannot go on vacation, risking shutdowns that Democrats would blame on the Republicans. And then finally, from a MAGA point of view, this exposes rhinos who talk tough but fold. Republicans who talk tough but fold. Mike Johnson, get in there, come out strong, and give the Senate the bad news. No vacation for you. Trump supporters are fired up with calls to get loud and pressure senators. If unresolved, it could fuel infighting and hurt the GOP turnout in future elections. This is why we lose. It looks like we lose our teeth. Now, let me get to this one. Here's John Thune. This is about all the swirl surrounding this issue. This is July 26th, okay? So this is like a week ago. Trump calls out Thune. Senate plans to take a 39-day recess starting August 1st. That's today, with 135 Trump nominees backlogged and 50 open federal judge positions. Johnson and Thune plan to convene and adjourn every 4 or 5 days. That's that little pro forma recess. It's a fake recess. They hit the gavel and do nothing. Now, here's a claim, because Thomas Massie put out a lie that Speaker Johnson and Senate Leader John Thune will block any recess appointments, okay? So that's if they indeed hit that gavel every 3 days and do not trigger that 10-day vacation that allows Trump to make recess appointments. Thomas Massie claimed, and this guy says that's a lie. First time GOP would block their own president if Thune says Congress is in session. But Mike Johnson disagrees. So that's if there's a disagreement between Thune and Johnson. This is going into the rules of why all this is happening. If Thune says Congress is in session, but Johnson disagrees, the president may adjourn both houses and make recess appointments. So now you don't need Thune and Johnson to agree. You just need Trump's boy, Mike Johnson, to disagree and say we're not in session. And then that will allow Trump to make his recess appointments. The process for Congress to go into recess and the potential for a president to override a Senate pro forma session to make recess appointments involves specific constitutional and procedural steps. That's why all this is so complicated, as well as historical and legal context. Below is a concise explanation of the process. Now I'm only going to read some of this, guys, because this is getting, pretty arcane. Congress going into recess, number 1. Constitutional basis, Article 1, Section 5, Clause 4 of the U.S. Constitution states that neither the House nor the Senate may adjourn for more than 3 days without the consent of the other chamber. This governs how Congress enters a recess. Process for recess. Both chambers must agree to adjourn via a concurrent resolution for mutual consent. If agreement is reached, Congress enters a recess for a specified period. If one chamber, example, the Senate or Mike Johnson, wants to stay in session or hold pro forma sessions, that's what Thune wants, minimal sessions to avoid a formal recess, it can do so, complicating recess appointments, pro forma sessions and their purpose, definition. We already went over pro forma, presidential recess appointments, conditions of recess appointments. These are all listed out. Now, overriding the pro forma session. Recess appointments are valid only during recesses of 10 days or longer, except in extraordinary circumstances. Here's presidential adjournment power under Article 2, Section 3. The president may, in cases of disagreement between the House and the Senate over adjournment, quote, adjourn them to such time as he shall think proper, unquote. So if they disagree, Trump can come in and adjourn them and basically call his own recess. Okay, this rare power could theoretically be used to force a recess, allowing recess appointments. However, this power has never been used in U.S. history. So that's a loophole that we're finding. Now, here's Mike Davis, who we love. He says justice is coming. I'm going to read a lot more from the Senate cloakroom, this tweet, because this tells you exactly what the Senate is doing from the cloakroom, from the closet, from inside the smoky rooms. The cloakroom posts, Leader John Thune filed cloture on executive calendar number 322, Jeanine Pirro to be the United States Attorney for the D.C. for the term of 4 years. Senate cloakroom says Leader Thune filed cloture on executive calendar number 151, Jason Redding Quinones to be the United States Attorney for the Southern District of Florida for the term of 4 years. So there's a judge. This is John Thune working as fast as he can because he's trying to extend it a couple days and give Trump some of his boys, some of his picks. He's going, let's just try, the normal way and get some stuff done. Now, recent action includes 2 roll call votes on July 30th. That was 2 days ago, confirming nominees like Sam Brown, the VA undersecretary, and others. But that's just a drop in the bucket. Dozens remain. Thune is negotiating with Democrats for a deal to fast track some via unanimous consent or voice votes, but Trump wants all or nothing, meaning he wants the full recess and have it go up to 10 days so he can make his appointments. The traditional August recess starts this week, but Thune plans to extend sessions a few days into next week for more votes. Trump sees this as a half measure, either stay until it's done or recess fully for his appointments, recess appointments. Now we're going to go into this whole battle with Democrats that are mostly cheering from the sidelines as they benefit from delays. I just want to remind Mike Johnson, delays benefit the Democrats. Now let's go here. Look at this. Here's that Senate cloakroom. What this is, and I'm going to hit refresh because these are coming up every minute now. They're giving you a play-by-play. This is, look, we can go into hours ago, but this is 20 minutes ago. Votes scheduled at 2:15 today. The Senate will proceed on 2 roll call votes on the following: confirmation of executive calendar number 90. That's Brian Nesvik, director of the United States Fish and Wildlife Service. Motion to invoke cloture on this calendar. Luigi Rinaldi to be ambassador secretary and plenipotentiary of the U.S. of America, Oriental Republic of Uruguay. Here's one that's confirmed of executive calendar. This is Casey Mulligan to be Chief Counsel for Advocacy, Small Business Administration. Here's another one, Casey Mulligan to be Chief Counsel for Advocacy, Small Business Administration. Oh, that they're doing step by step. So it went from now voting to confirmed. Here's another one, now voting for Brian Nesvik to be Director of the Fish and Wildlife, and then he was invoked 55-41. Motion to invoke cloture. Let's go down a little farther. Here is 11 a.m. on Friday, August 1st. The Senate will proceed on 2 roll call votes. That's the Fish and Wildlife one, just so you can see how slow this goes. Look at this one. Here's one from 14 hours ago. Military promotions confirmed by unanimous consent. Executive calendar 325 through 40 and all nominations on the Secretary's desk in the Air Force, Army, Coast Guard, Marine Corps, Navy, and Space Force, with the exception of PN 89. So we find out who PN 89 is. Here's Leader Thune filed cloture on executive calendar on Marcus Molinaro to be Federal Transit Administrator. Here's the Assistant Tech Secretary of the U.S. Army. Here's National Cyber Director. Here's John Arrigo to be the Ambassador to the Portuguese Republic. Catherine Hansard to Chief Financial Officer. So now you guys are getting an idea of just how deep and clandestine all this stuff is. And I'll give you this final rundown, is this cool grid I had Grok make for us. So very kind of them. This shows who's on what side at the top here. And then this one says who are the key players, what's their position, and why they're involved. This is my MAGA opinion on this. So look, here's the Republicans are the who. These are the pro-stay, and they don't want to recess, and they align with Trump. That is, Donald Trump is on this side. Senator Mike Lee, who's a Republican from Utah, we like him. Senator Ron Johnson, Republican from Wisconsin, we like him. And there's influencers like Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon, so you know what side they're on. They want to demand a full session under calendar cleared. If not, push for real recess to enable Trump's appointments. That's what we want, all or nothing. Stay and do your job, Mike Johnson and Thune, or go full recess and don't do this gavel every 3 days thing where you don't approve anyone. That's BS. And then over on the right, this is true MAGA warriors fighting the establishment. Trump called out the Senate directly. Lee and Johnson are leading the charge to cancel recess or force appointments, exposing the rhino laziness. Now, here's the Republicans who are pro-recess and hesitant to stay. That is, they want that pro forma recess that allows them to come and do the gavel. Okay, and they're in opposition to Trump. Who are they? Senator John Thune, Republican of SD, Majority Leader, and Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican, Louisiana for the House. Those are the two leaders that are opposing Trump. So Mike Johnson, if you're Trump's buddy, and that's my allegation I've made about you, this is where you prove it. And you need to really do this. And I'm going to tweet to Mike Johnson, stay in session. You need to work hard to save America, or, I'm going to have some words for you. They favor recess with pro forma sessions to block appointments, open to short extension, but not the full cancellation. So they've already extended it a little bit into next week to open up some votes. Johnson has, quote, tossed in the towel on the House side, signaling broader GOP fatigue. That's what I'm going to mention to him on Twitter. What do you mean you threw in the towel? Get to work. You know what? I'm working. I worked all through my vacation, 2 weeks in San Diego last week. I put out 4 videos a day. I worked on my vacation. Work. Get to work. The establishment sellouts prioritizing vacations over America is what we're going to say. Thune met with Trump, but is defying him by negotiating with Dems and planning pro forma to neuter the recess powers. Speaker Mike Johnson, as House leader, influences overall GOP strategy, but wants recess, showing weak leadership. And then what are the Democrats doing? This is most important. Democrats, they're pro-recess and obstruct confirmations. Chuck Schumer and Minority Leader, other Dem senators holding filibusters, they want a recess to delay Trump's agenda, so they want Thune to do that gavel every 3 days. They oppose fast-tracking nominees. That's what we need. And if they oppose it, that's what we want. I want them to go into a full recess for 10 days and let Trump do this. Radical leftists stalling to protect their deep state allies. They're wearing down Republicans with procedural games, hoping to run out the clock on Trump's term. Democrats are smart. I get why they're doing this. It's effective. Why in the world is Thune and Mike Johnson doing the same thing as what the Democrats want? That's what we're tweeting to them today, guys. Pass this around to all your friends. Do reach out to Mike Johnson and Thune, either on Twitter or call their offices. I'm Doug in Exile. Subscribe.